This is going to be a bit difficult since I have to use two microphones for some reason. I will be talking about agreements. I think agreements are the key to making distributed teams succeed. Using the phone as a remote control to build up on the Internet of Things, and I will also be referring a little bit to the second talk about management and line management in the organization. So it's a really good place for this talk, I think. I will also leave my phone as a note here as well. My name is Molood, and as Miss said, I work as an Agile coach at Loft House. I've worked with Agile since 2011-ish, well, really started at 2012. I've been working as a developer, a tester, a test lead, a scrum master, and everything in Agile that I worked with in companies like Ericsson or King, it always had some element of distribution involved. So I started asking myself the question, is this the way things are supposed to be? I don't want to say that for effective communication, we need to be face-to-face and we need to be colloquial. Are we doing things really wrong? I read a lot about it, and I started interviewing people who have been in the field, who have created successful companies using remote works, remote teams, and distributed organizations. And I started talking to the people who are really, really masters of Agile. And I started seeing are going along, more companies are becoming distributed. And those companies that are distributed are starting to see the value in Agile. Distribution is really a separate trend. It is the way we as humans are going to move to live a more digital life. I don't know about you guys. Do you have kids? How many of you have kids? Almost all of you. Interesting. Have you ever seen your kid sit with a friend, looking on their phones and chatting with each other instead of talking? Have you seen your kids have friends that they haven't met, but they constantly over engage? These kids, the adults of the future. The way that communication is changing our daily life, in the lives of our children, is a result of technology being advanced. And the fact that companies are being distributed is because they gain a lot of value from it. Sorry, let's look at, these are actually just some of the companies that I talked to, the people working there, I talked to some of them, and they are all Agile and they're all remote. WordPress, GitHub, you've probably heard about all of them. But what are the benefits for the companies? The first and the most obvious benefit companies find by going distributed and having remote workers is cost, of course. Companies can reduce their cost to an average of $11,000 per year per person. Forbes magazine did a survey and they discovered that American Express, as an example, they introduced remote working as in a work from home option, so people could work from anywhere. And in 1 year, they managed to save between $10 to $15 million. I have a lot of more examples of that kind of cost reduction. But the next thing is increased productivity and efficiency. Where do you guys go to get real work done? This question was asked from over 10,000 people in a survey. And no one, not a single person said, I go to the office. There were people who said the office before everyone comes in, the office after everyone goes home, a quiet corner of the office, in a closed conference room. But most people, they either work from the comfort of their couch at home, or they work from the kitchen table, or they go in a cafe, or a lot of other locations. But if offices are not allowing our workers to be productive, why the hell are we spending so much money buying and renting office spaces. Well, we have that. We can't get away from it. But also, having distributed teams in different countries, allowing companies, allowing businesses to expand and to basically have market, reach a new market, meet a market from close by. The next one is access to top talent. What if I told you that not all the talented people live in your city? That's not a surprise, really. In order to get access to the top talent, this makes sense from a business perspective. But there are also benefits for employees. The first one is access to employers. If you could work for any company of your choice, say Pixar or WordPress, wouldn't you want to do that? I would. The next one is cost and time saving. You can save about $1,000 if you only stop commuting to work every day. And when you think about the time, assuming that you spend about an hour one way door to door to go to an office every day, that makes about an hour a day. So we have 5 days a week, and give or take the Swedish holidays, that would be 3 hours per year. Just imagine what you could do that hour and all that money saved. The next one is better quality of life. When you have a lot of time, you have quality of life. Wouldn't you want to work like that? I actually wouldn't. The sun annoys on the screen. But what about this? Don't you want to be able to spend more time around your kids? What about that music you always wanted to work on and you never have time for it? What about working on your health? The truth is, in the same survey, it was shown that about 5% of the people started working remotely reported more actually 30% that more physical activity was done. 40% of them reported that they took better care of their health and they started eating better. And about 42% also reported reduced stress. Which brings us to the topic of today, agreements. The reason why I called the subject agreements is working with distributed teams is not really a question of technology. It is a question of people. It is how, as people, need to change our mindset and to look at the situation as an opportunity instead of a disease that we need to heal or we need to cure. I'm going to go through about 10 agreements, actually exactly 10, but depending on the time, I might just skip over a few. These are the things that I have used in my experience working with agile or distributed teams in a different. The first one is obviously managing time zones. If you have people working in different time zones, make sure that you have at least 2 to 3 hours overlap. If you need to create meetings, make sure that the meetings are at a good time for everyone. If people work in a time zone that really cannot possibly match all the other time zones, have a conversation and ask them if they can, for example, work 12 to 8 instead of the regular 9 to 5. But have a conversation and make it work. The next one is about cultural differences. We all know that having different backgrounds, different cultures in the team can help us increase our ability to solve complex problems. That's not really a surprise to any of us, I guess. In fact, there is a professor at the Keelag University called Catherine Phillip. She did a research about the impact of different backgrounds on a team. And she discovered that only adding one person from a different background, same national culture, just a different background to the team, took them out of their comfort zone, and helped them to look at the problem differently. For those of you who I even McKinsey example here. McKinsey also did the research. They discovered that but the companies on the top quartile of the gender diversity, and this is about gender diversity, it's still not really tapping into the national culture. The companies with a high degree of gender diversity are 15% more likely to generate revenue higher than of their industries. And if that is adding to us, why not diversify even more? But if cultural difference is such a good thing, what do we need to do? Why do we even need to care about it? Well, actually, it creates challenges. The first thing that I'd like to mention is a human thing. Learn about different cultures. If you're working with people of a different culture, be genuinely curious and ask them about their culture. And culture is not just national, it could also be culture. If your company gets acquired by an enterprise, always been a startup, you obviously have different work cultures, have different management cultures. But you need to have a conversation and that you need to establish common agreements and common grounds to work from. When you start genuinely being curious about those different cultures, you start open and accommodating. And the last one is the one that you should not touch. It's a stereotyping and talking about religion. Those are really sensitive topics that can really offend people. If you didn't, please be aware of that. And when you're talking to people, try not to stereotype. Yeah, sure, but be aware of that one. Agreement number 3, hiring. You need to hire people for only. I mean, is basically, I thought life is too short to spend it on convincing someone who spends their entire energy during the entire day to resist working remotely or working in a distributed team. When you are adding new people, make sure that they understand this is a company and what is expected of them. You need to make writing precisely. When you identify your company culture, you can then hire the right people. Agreement number 4, technology and tools, which is something you're all wondering. I have a lot of examples that I have used, the pros and cons. You can talk to me afterwards and specifically about those. But the tools for a development team in an agile organization. What programming language do you use? What test framework do you use? What is your version system? Those kinds of things. You need to have everyone to have access to them. The next one is meeting. How do you do meetings? What tools do you use for them? A really example of that is when someone is expecting to have a meeting and they're waiting on Skype and someone else has created a Google Hangout and has invited some people there, and then there is this other guy in a different country who is using an internal system, and it's 20 minutes to figure out which platform to use. Make sure that you have an agreement on what tools you're using in the company. Also about the business tools, you should know what accounting people at all times to everyone. Agreement number 5. Visualize dummies. I'm really serious about that. I mean that is that visualization has a purpose. The purpose of visualization is to be able to access information quickly and easily. I've seen people using Jira with a lot of dashboards, like 200 dashboards. No one can look into them. That is not called visualization. You need to create a balance. Use the Swedish word lagom and visualize enough for the people. You are already visualizing your workflow, I suppose, since you are here in an agile and lean mindset. You are already able to work status. You have daily stand-ups, you have to do them effectively in a distributed team. It takes a little bit of discipline. actually a lot of it. You also need to be good facilitators, which we'll come to. Another thing that I found useful is to visualize the calendars and the dependencies, both and the team with outside teams, as well as in the product. Architecture of the product, it should be really easily accessible, especially if you're in the growth phase. Agreement number 6, decision making. Decision making is really opposite. In Sweden, we have decision. In a lot of other how they make decisions, they have hierarchies, and the person higher up in the hierarchy makes decision for the people lower in the hierarchy. How do you want to work together? Have a conversation, make a decision. I often recommend sense decision making, kind of set about what that is and where it comes from. The next one is actually for the top one is making decisions about design, about code, about test. Those kind of decisions, how are they made? You have one architect, or does it make it better? Have a separate QA, or the QA entirely handled by the development teams. Make that explicit. By explicit, write it about comprehensive documentation, if you're wondering. It can just be verbal agreements, but it's accessible for everyone. And also about your ways of working. It also needs to be clearly defined and available for everyone. Agreement number 7, conference calls. Just kidding. That was not really what I meant to say. Conference calls are good, but meetings are not the solution. I am all for no meeting at all, if we could do that. But this one is a week keeping Confluence. I'm sure that even if you don't use Confluence, you use some other kind of wiki in your internal of the company, I don't know, internal website of the company. Wiki pages are amazing because when you want to create a proposal, for example, a design feature, one person can create the first draft of the proposal, then they can signal everyone else can look at it in their own time, comment on it, edit it, and have a conversation in the comments and evolve it all together until you're satisfied. Or you think that it's time to have a face-to-face meeting and then go to that conference call. Email is still not dead. If you're thinking of calling for a meeting, going through this really awful audio quality over internet is not stable, jitter is really annoying. Also, time. If you're calling that meeting just to inform people of something, pause for a second and use an email. People of that, or maybe chat. Having chat rooms and being really good at using chat is also a very important part of being successful in a distributed team. We also have integrations. This one is HipChat from Atlassian. Those of you using Jira or other products are familiar. Another popular one is Slack. That is, some people claim that is actually replacing emails. So if you haven't had it, right? But if you're trying to ping someone in chat and you can't find them within 10-15 minutes, then you might want to give SMS a try. If that doesn't work, just give them. If that doesn't work, you can call for a conference call. Agreement number 8, value asynchronous written communication. There is so much to say about asynchronous communication. I already told you about the design doc. This is just an example, storiesonboard.com. This is a tool that I have used in my work to help distributed teams create a story map for a new system that we were creating. Agreement number 9, facilitation. For pair programming, the developers need to have a certain level of skill in facilitation. And this one, creating the same experience for everyone. This is from a demo that I did. Okay, I'm a bit out of time. Can I take 1 more minute? Okay. This is from This is how I used to run demos when I was in any distributed team. If you have a allocated team who see each other face to face, putting them in a conference room and having the other people in another office go to another conference room, having these people who are satellites who are singular sitting on their own computer is not really going to be very efficient. Some people would phase out in the first 5 minutes of the demo. What I did, however, was to give everyone a headset and make sure that I was facilitating the meeting really well. So people would take turns, they would share their screen, and they would talk about what they were sharing on the screen. And at the same time, other people were chatting and commenting about what they were saying. And then there was, and it was like a webinar. But we did that and we got so comfortable with it that the team could do that without me. And the next is socializing and having fun. The use of internet memes is so ubiquitous these days. Those of us who are age, we are really created this one myself. And that one, to you all. Thank you.